Our good friend and colleague Chris Sims has just finished his top 40 quarterback list for the year 2020. So Jac Collinsworth, Corey Robinson, and myself, Ahmed Fareed, are here to crush him for this top 40 list, or perhaps maybe agree with him a little bit, but that's not quite as fun. Corey, what are you prepared to do with this top 40 list?
I'm more on the agree side.
Oh, okay.
All right. But I'm more, I guess, diplomatic in that sense. I think you did a pretty good job.
So we'll look at the list, and I'm going to bring it up here right now, Jack. And let me give the premise of the list first. So what Chris does every year, he's been doing this the last few years back at Bleacher Report before he came over here full-time at NBC Sports, is try to give the 40 quarterbacks that if he was a head coach and if he had random talent around him, he doesn't get the receivers that he has now. He doesn't get the head coach and the scheme that he has right now. It's just kind of a random offense and random offensive players who he would take for just 1 year and 1 year only, this 2020 season, to try to win him a Super Bowl. So what you've done in the past, not really relevant too much outside of the fact that you're just kind of learning what he can and cannot do in 2020. So that's the idea. And Jack, let me just start with this. I think this is a really interesting practice that Chris does, because I don't know that there's any other sport outside of football that it's harder to extrapolate what the individual is responsible for and what the team is responsible for. I think in basketball, LeBron James, you put him on a team, he can carry a bad team. You know, he's great. But you put Peyton Manning, Tom Brady behind a terrible offensive line with terrible receivers who can't separate and no running game, he's not going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback. He's not going to be Tom Brady. So what do you think? Do you think that's true? Do you think it's super, super difficult to extrapolate exactly what the quarterback is contributing and how much of it is the team?
Super difficult for an individual. Yeah, I mean, I think that's what you're mentioning is the entire point behind PFF. So, I mean, we spend the whole day doing that, but it takes 500 plus people to grade and evaluate all these guys. So, I mean, it's not like it's a part-time job to try to watch every single play of every guy, but you have to take the quarterback position and isolate it, right? I mean, so it's about what do they do on yards that are within 10 yards, throws that are within 10 yards down the field? What do they do 10 to 20 yards down the field? What do they do 20 plus yards down the field? When you start evaluating every single throw, I think you get a little bit clearer of a picture of where you want to go with this list. The two obvious ones that jump out right off the top, and I think it's probably important because others may be wondering the same question, is do we have to bring the contract with it? So you get them for 1 year. I got that. We're not worried about the future. We're not worried about the next 5 years. But do I have to bring their current contract? Because that's a big determining factor. That's
a good question, because obviously that limits what you can do with the rest of the team. Chris does not factor that in to his rankings. So it's just talent alone, okay. Arm talent, brain talent, polish as a quarterback. That's all he's rating on here. But you bring up a good point, because a average quarterback on a great deal, hey, you can have a stud offensive line or a stud defense, and that certainly does matter. So maybe, Jack, you're going to have to come up with your top 40 with contract quarterback countdown list.
I mean, the first two that jump straight to my brain, and now the list is a little bit scooted in there. I'm having trouble making out the guys that I was going to go to, but Drew Brees and Tom Brady, 15, 16. I mean, you got to be anticipating a pretty significant cliff if you're going to put them at 15 and 16. There's no way that you could say Tom Brady met that cliff last year. I don't think. I mean, his receivers were the worst that we've seen in a long, long, long time for Tom Brady. And to have Drew Brees at 16, I don't understand that.
So PFF had him at 2, right? PFF had him at 2 last year. Okay,
correct. And I guess you could make the Sean Payton argument, and that he's a bit of a system quarterback and that kind of a thing. It's a bit of a stretch argument for me. I think Drew Brees in any list, if you're going to go outside of the top 6, I mean, just think about it like rationally, right? Look, we're playing a fantasy football draft. We're putting every NFL player into this bin. You're Jerry Jones and your fantasy football picking your team right now. You're telling me that you're going to take Ryan Tannehill, Cam Newton, Matt Stafford, Dak Prescott, Matt Ryan, Carson Wentz, all of those guys ahead of Drew Brees. If you have 1 year, I mean, I don't know that with a rational mind you could.
But wait a minute, Jack. I think this is something that I was thinking about with this list. I too was triggered by that. I was like, oh my goodness, that's disrespectful. But then I also thought, wait a second. The thing that's really tough about football is that no one cares what you did last year. And we see that all the time, right? And if this is a 1 year deal, like if you're looking at an older Tom Brady, an older Drew Brees, like it's hard for me because I looked up to those guys my entire life. And I see them as just, the faces of quarterbacks in the NFL, right? And I revere them. So it's almost like I have to keep them in the top 10 all the time. But I think the exercise of this list is pretty interesting because it's just 1 year and all bets are off. It's a clean slate. I mean, I don't know. I think Tom Brady going to a new team, it takes time to figure out that team. You're not going to just win a Super Bowl with a brand new team right off the bat. You have no chemistry, So yeah. It's hard for me. It's hard for me to balance my past reverence for these guys with this idea, this exercise of, hey, all bets are off. Just 1 year. Take it out of context.
This is what I'd say with Drew Brees, and I, doing the podcast with Chris once a week for a year now. I can get into his brain, which is a super scary place to be for Chris. Living in that brain can be super scary. But the arguments for Drew Brees are compelling, and you're not alone to be questioning that ranking. He was expecting it. He had him ranked 10th and Tom Brady 9th last year and drew some heat for that. Although I would argue that Brady's ranking of 9 might have been okay last year. Actually, maybe was a little too high. But for Brees, what do you think of this, Jack? Drew Brees, at the end of the year, we saw the limitations with the deep ball. You can scheme around that. Good defenses, playoff defenses can say, okay, he can't throw deep. He has the benefit of Sean Payton offense, which you admitted as well. He has the benefit of Michael Thomas there, who he compliments very well, and Michael Thomas compliments him. But there are ways to scheme Drew Brees now where I would argue there maybe aren't ways to scheme, Kyler Murray. Certainly not as polished, certainly not as refined of a player. I mean, Drew Brees is on a Hall of Fame track, will be a Hall of Famer, but there's more things that Kyler Murray right now, deep ball, running the ball, can do than Drew Brees in a talent standpoint.
Here's what I would say, and I listened to a lot of his explanations, and it sounded like a lot of his list stemmed from a talent standpoint, a physical tool standpoint, the arm strength, the arm accuracy. It was all of those things. And I think about 80 to 90% of playing quarterback in the NFL happens between this year and this year. And that, I think, is where I fundamentally disagree with the list. I asked an NFL quarterback one time, I said, why don't you just check the ball down more? When I go watch Tom Brady and I watch Drew Brees and I watch the best around the league, it seems like they're very okay at all times to take a little 5-yard dump to the running back, to take a 5-yard dump to the tight end and set yourself up with a 2nd and 5, ultimately set yourself up with a 3rd and 2, those kind of things. And his response to me was, you have no clue how much mind games goes into play in order to set up an open running back in the flat for a 5-yard gain. You have no idea.
It's true.
That is the ultimate chess match of football. And that's why guys like Drew Brees and Tom Brady should always be in the top 10, because it doesn't matter if their arms are going down a little bit. Their minds are better than they've ever been. And that's the value of guys like that.
But there's going to come a time, though, Jack. I mean, you can't say that forever, right? Because they're 60 years old. They're not going to be in the top. So there is going to be a year. Eventually, it has to happen where they're not a top 10 quarterback. And Chris is saying that year is this year. This is going to be the year where they're not going to be a top 10 quarterback, because
people have been saying that about Tom Brady since he was 35 years old. I mean, they've been saying that since he was 35 years old. I think here's the difference. I think 40 is the new 35. And a big reason why is all the stuff that they're now learning they could do off the field. And another big reason why is you can't hit these guys. You're not allowed to hit them. You hit them and you're off the field for about 10 years. I mean, you cannot touch these quarterbacks. And all of a sudden, they have another 5+ years extended on the back of their careers, and they're doing it at a high level. Now, the only argument that you can get really against this is the Peyton Manning cliff, because there's no doubt that Peyton Manning, now he was banged up a little bit. He had some neck stuff and things like that down the stretch, and there's no doubt that defense carried him to that final Super Bowl. But I don't see it for either one of those two guys. And I think Tom Brady, having the weaponry that he will have in Tampa this year, you are going to see a whole nother level.
What do you think about the Tom Brady ranking here, Corey? Because I think, what he has done at the age of what's he going to be, 43? We've never seen it before. What he was able to do last year in his early 40s. We've seen quarterbacks play before in their 40s, but never this well and this successfully. So really, I mean, it's a testament. If he's 15, or even if he was in just the top 20 quarterbacks in the NFL this year, Corey. That would still be something we have really never seen before in the NFL, the fact that you can do this for so many years.
It's almost like I think Tom Brady reminds me. I watched this Instagram live of Serena Williams talking, and she was talking to Brian Stevenson from Equal Justice Initiative, and she was saying how I won so many majors. It got to a point in my career where the crowd didn't care anymore, right? And they only cheered when me or Venus were losing. And that's kind of how I feel with Tom Brady, where he's so good, and he's been so good for so long. We're like, oh yeah, we just assume he's going to be in the top 10. And if he's not, then that's like, oh, well, that's kind of controversial. Like now we can actually talk about something. And I totally agree. I respect his excellence. I think he's amazing. I think what he's doing is unprecedented. And I think he obviously just takes a really strong argument for being the GOAT. But I think the thing that makes Mr. Brady so amazing is that you can never sleep on him. He's a champion through and through. You can never count him out. And in that sense, like, I don't care if he's 50, 60, 70 years old. The guy is a beast. He's a monster, and he's a killer. So as long as he can walk, like Jack is saying, as long as he can be in the pocket and make decisions, you can never count him out.
It's hard to put a value on being through all these situations a billion times. You know what I mean? Like having lived through that coverage and this blitz and this and that and the other. And that's, I believe, why Tom Brady continues to play. Because he thinks he could do it at a high level, if not a higher level than he's ever done it before. And if his arm is decreasing, 5%, 10%, I think he makes up for that decrease in arm strength with an increase in mind strength. And also the ability to rally guys around you. To when you walk 100%. Into a huddle and guys believe that you're going to take them down the field with less than 2 minutes left, that has tremendous value in winning football games. I mean, so many games come down to a fourth quarter drive when you have to have 3. Or you have to have 7, and nobody delivers in those moments like Tom Brady. And am I saying that, a Kyler Murray of the world can't get there? No, I mean, I think he can get there. But to say that right now he's ahead of Tom Brady, you're reaching. You're just reaching.
But Jack, the only other person I would say can do that, 2 people, is Patrick Mahomes and Russell Wilson. They're the only 2 guys that I'd be like, if anything goes down, like I'd be in the huddle and I think we can get through this. And I've been in those huddles, man. I'm telling you, Drew Brees as well, for sure. But Patrick Mahomes is like second for me, and Russell's third. I think Drew Brees is fourth for me personally. But man, I've been there. Like I remember when I was a freshman, I was terrified at Notre Dame. Right? I mean, this is the big time. This is the show. Right? We're playing USC. We're playing Michigan. I got in the huddle and I'm like, we're down by 7. We had a 2-minute drill. We practiced this, but I don't know if we can actually do this with 100 fans booing us. Right? And I remember Zach Martin going in the huddle, and he was calm, like calm as day. And he was like, it's just another day, just another time, another day, in the office. And that's when I realized that, like, there's a whole nother level here. And that's why he's an all-decade offensive lineman. That's why he's one of the best in the NFL, because when you go in the huddle, you believe you can do anything with Zach Martin. And I think you see that now with Tom Brady, is guys are still saying, when he's 43 years old or 42 or whatever, guys are still saying, oh, man, like he's going to Tampa Bay. I want to be on that team because I know we can do it. If he's in the huddle, I know we can do whatever. That's special.
Yeah. And it starts now. I mean, think about this. Like when he's going through these offseason workouts, did you hear all the guys say, he's not just saying, hey, go over there, run a slant. He's giving them the full play calls right now. All of these guys, the entire play call, and then they get out and they run the routes. It's all the little training stuff throughout the offseason that some of these younger guys, they're just not quite up to that level yet from a mental standpoint.
I think there's so many. The reason I like this list is it just sparks all these different conversations. And what do you value? Do you value that experience and knowing the offense? But what if, like Drew Brees, he can't throw the deep ball anymore? Does that experience and knowledge trump that fact? What do you guys think about the top 2 on his list? I just showed Patrick Mahomes there, number 1 quarterback, Super Bowl MVP. You agree, Corey? But you got Lamar Jackson too, who we saw last year. When you can combine dynamic running ability with the passing ability that Lamar Jackson has, perhaps not significant up there with some of the best quarterbacks throwing the football right now. But I'll tell you what, threw the ball pretty well, can throw the ball downfield, got a strong arm. Jack, when you look at Lamar Jackson compared to Patrick Mahomes, what comes to mind?
What comes to mind is he's on one of these kind of curves. And so then you wonder what another year of one of these kind of curves could look like from a passing standpoint. And that's pretty enticing. I mean, it's impossible to leave him outside of the top 5. Now, do you put him above Rodgers, Russell Wilson, and Mahomes, probably not. I think he's probably in the 4 to 5 range as a Deshaun Watson, probably 6, 4, 5, right around that range. But I mean, just look at this stat too. So as we talk about his arm getting better and his accuracy getting better, more comfortable, just winning from the pocket, hitting a 3-step drop, hitting a 5-step drop, and just going. How about forced missed tackles? Just forced missed tackles at the quarterback position. Cam Newton, he's in second place with 36. Josh Allen, he has 35. This is in their first 2 seasons. Lamar Jackson, 63. Wow. Almost double those 2 guys. And so he's just doing things as a runner from the quarterback position that nobody else is close to.
Yeah, but I think the problem with stats is I feel like that's also kind of concerning to me. I'm like, well, wait a second. Like, is there penetration? Like, why are there so many mixed tackles? Or like, is he out of the pocket? Is he, you know what I'm saying? But anyways, but I will agree that I think
the latter.
Yeah, I think Lamar is phenomenal. I love Lamar Jackson. I'm a huge Lamar Jackson fan. In fact, I feel like Lamar Jackson is where Giannis is in basketball, right? And this is what I mean by this. We talked about Tom Brady and why he's the GOAT. The thing that I think is so interesting about Lamar Jackson and Giannis is that you both are coming off MVP seasons. You both are maturing into, I mean, some of the best players in your sport. Like Lamar Jackson, the second player ever to be the unanimous MVP. Like, there's no doubt the man is a monster. He's a machine. He's a walking cheat code. But there's a difference between team success and individual success. And I think a great leader, a great player, especially at the quarterback position, they get to this journey where there are very few people in the NFL, right? It'd be good to do that. Then there are very few people who can achieve the success, the individual success in the NFL. Very few people have done that. Lamar's done that. Then you get to a point where you're like, it's not about me. It's about if I can only be great if I can make other people around me great. And it happens with every greats in any sport. And then when they reach that level, they become transcendent. And the thing that is hard with the comparison to Patrick Mahomes is you can do all the technical stuff you want. But the fact of the matter is that I don't think we've seen a quarterback to be transcendent immediately since Tom Brady. Because Tom Brady came out right away within his first year or 2, right? Won a Super Bowl. Like Patrick Mahomes won the MVP second year, now Super Bowl MVP third year. Like, the guy is not only the best player himself, but he makes everyone around him the best players. And once Lamar Jackson figures that out, he's going to be good for a long time.
For sure. And I think you could make – Ahmed, tell me if you disagree with this. I think you could make similar comparisons. If you're going to say Drew Brees is in a Sean Payton system, Lamar Jackson is in a perfect system for Lamar Jackson too. I mean, you got to take those hand in hand.
It's a great running scheme there. Greg Roman, who was able to do a lot of the same things that they're doing in Baltimore back with San Francisco when I was working out there, and Colin Kaepernick, 100%. And which makes it so difficult, which I give Chris a lot of credit, and what you guys do as well at PFF, of trying to extrapolate exactly, okay, how much is he being helped by an offensive line that's able to move the pile and open up some holes. I want to get your guys' opinion on 35 here, Jarrett Stidham, because we talked a lot about Tom Brady, but Bill Belichick, Josh McDaniels were apparently comfortable to move on from Tom Brady and put the trust for everything we hear. They really like Jarrett Stidham. This is not one of those things where it's just kind of like the backup fallback plan. They're going to figure something out 2-3 years down the road. They feel like Jarrett Stidham is the answer 2 or 3 years down the road. Clearly, or else I guess they wouldn't be going with him this year. What do you guys think of Jarrett Stidham? Because I'm prone to trust Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels when it comes to evaluating quarterbacks in the NFL.
You want to go, Jack, or you want me to chop in?
I could go. I mean, truthfully, if you had Bill Belichick put a list, I think it's possible he might put Jarrett Stidham ahead of Tom Brady. I mean, yeah, that lets you know something. I don't think Bill Belichick's going to coach for the rest of his life. And if he's taking, whatever he is, late 60s, and he's going, Tom Brady, go down to Tampa Bay, we're good here with Jarrett Stidham. Or if he's even okay. I mean, listen, he's been insinuating that he's okay with that for 3 years now, 5 years now. Yeah. And now it finally happened. It lets you know that he thinks in large part they've been winning football games by playing great defense and by ball control, by running it in some of these big games, and by having great coaching staff, and that it's not all the Tom Brady show, and that he can do it with another quarterback. And so now you're going to get your chance with Jarrett Stidham. And truthfully, from my standpoint, while he's done good stuff at the college level, I was just looking at his college grades. You just don't know until you put him on an NFL field on a Sunday with an NFL pass rush and trying to get the ball to Julian Edelman with 6'5" monsters coming right in his face. So all of those things he's going to have to prove. So until then, I think he sits at 35. I like where he is.
So maybe he would, Jack, put him above Tom Brady, but he probably likes the 35 ranking because Bill Belichick, Corey, wants to prove that he can win. He can win without a top. He didn't need Tom Brady. He didn't need an elite quarterback. He'll take one ranked 35th on the Chris Sims quarterback countdown list.
He likes the contract too.
Yes, true. Very true.
And the expectations, I feel, right? I mean, a lot of this level at least is succeeding. You got to be able to manage expectations. And with Belichick, your argument, Jack, I think it sounds a lot like it reminds me of The Last Dance, Jerry Krause argument. It's like, do organizations win championships or does Michael Jordan win a championship? And I feel like every coach has that internal battle because you're dealing with egos here, and you can't escape the ego of a GM or a coach or a player, especially when you're at a championship level. And I do wonder how much of this is belief in a system or an ego battle between, Mr. Brady and Coach Belichick. I don't know. I don't know them personally. I've never met them. So that's just a question that we have to think about. But as far as Jarrett Stidham is concerned, I agree with you. You're going to have to wait till you see, because this is the issue, right? And in college, I think anyone can be a great quarterback because in college, there's no salary cap. Right? Like anything can happen. Like all the best players in college are all talking to each other. It's like free agency in the NBA, where you can all just decide to go to Alabama. You can all just decide to go LSU and play with your boys. And then you end up having an unbelievable team. And Joe Burrow has the greatest season ever, at LSU, whatever. But then in the pros, you get drafted. And then you have to deal with, okay, if you're going to pay me, you can't get weapons on the outside. There's a give or take.
Yeah, talent's more spread out.
Exactly. And I think that's what's going to be so interesting about this is that, can Stidham win without, all these crazy weapons, or can he win with the weapons? Like, this is the problem with being a quarterback at this next level is you have to be able to take with what you have. And that's what separates the good from the great. So I don't know. I haven't seen him play at this level. I don't have the tape. But if you sit behind Tom Brady for that long, he's got to absorb something, right? So I'm excited to see his mental toughness.
What are you talking about here, Corey? Because we've always heard paying college athletes. If we do that, then all the best players are going to all go to the same schools that can pay him. What do you tell him? You're saying that happens now? You're saying all the top athletes already go to the top colleges out there? Oh, wow.
Yeah. No. Yeah. It's just like, I think it's funny because you have when you're getting recruited, everyone talks, right? So it's kind of like all the best players want to play with the best guys.
Why wouldn't you?
Exactly. So it's interesting. Like now I think that's one of the coolest things about college football, but it also creates these perennial powers because, all the top guys that the opening and the Army All-American Bowl game, all want to play together. Yeah. And who can blame them? But in the NFL, it's not like that. So I wonder.
Yeah. One factor that I think with regard to Tom Brady and making a switch to Jarrett Stidham is within the locker room. I mean, Bill Belichick is one of the final old school style coaches who can just bust asses and get away with it. I mean, it's now you have guys like Sean McVay and all these new age coaches where they're more player coach style guys, right? And you still have Belichick who's still has a little Bill Parcells to him and that sort of style. And I've had multiple former New England Patriots tell me that the real key is that he'll get in there on day one and he'll bust Tom Brady's ass. I mean, he'll just get in him. And it'll be 2007. He'll show the playoff game, show all the mistakes Tom Brady made, and he'll start yelling at him right in the first row. He sets the tone right then. My 6-time Super Bowl winning quarterback, he's not getting away with anything. I'm treating him just like the rest of you, and then everybody falls right in line. Now that you don't have Tom Brady, who's going to be willing to take that kind of thing on day one of training camp, are you able to recreate that in a 2020 new age locker room or not? And he still has to prove that, talking about Bill Belichick, or a guy's going to start to go, man, this is a whole new era now, and you need to get with it. And we just don't know yet.
Yeah, it's gonna be fascinating to see. I mean, both with Tom Brady in Tampa, how he does there with the weapons that he has, because he's got a lot of them, probably more than he had in New England. But how New England moves on in this Bill Belichick 2.0 era. All right, guys, I'm going to throw this at you because this list for Chris is all about 2020, 1 year. I tried to look into the future. I tried to go into 2025 and how the top 5 might look in 2025. So we're talking 5 years down the road. We'll see if you guys agree. My number 5 was Russell Wilson, who will be 36 years old But as we've seen, you can play quarterback into your 40s. Maybe not quite the style that Russell Wilson plays, but I got him at number 5. At number 4, I threw in. Oh, hold on. I threw in Trevor Lawrence. Ooh. Clemson. From all we hear about Trevor, he's got good game film. I really haven't dissected it. I don't do that really, but I will trust a lot of people out there that say he's going to be a unanimous number 1. Number 3, Patrick Mahomes.
Interesting.
But I think there's going to be a revolution. Here's my theory in the NFL. Not a revolution. We've already seen it. But in 2025, we will see the mobile quarterback, the running quarterback, game plans designed for players like Lamar Jackson, who will be number 2. And number 1 in my list is Kyler Murray, guys, because I feel like we're going to see it just like Greg Roman has done. Jack, you mentioned it with the Baltimore Ravens, designed an offense that accentuates the abilities of a mobile quarterback. I don't see that trend stopping. I see them putting the pedal to the metal on that. And so I'm taking Lamar and Kyler as my top 2 quarterbacks in the year 2025.
Wow.
What do you think?
I mean, I'm shook.
Hot take.
I'm really shook. That's a steaming hot take.
Steaming hot take.
I think Ahmed. Wow.
I've left you speechless. Wow.
I will say this though. I'm just saying, like, you're really blowing my mind here because history repeats itself. If we learn anything from history, it's that I don't know if the mobile quarterback is a sustainable model. That's just my personal take. And I love. No, check this out. Because like I love Michael Vick. You know, I loved watching him. You know, huge fan of his. Vince Young in college. Like, wow. Like I grew up on that. But when you talk about the greats of all time, you don't really like how many great mobile quarterbacks are there, right? I think pocket passers.
I don't disagree. Yeah.
I think pocket passers are always going to be exactly. I think pocket passers are always going to be your top because of this fact that pocket passers can stay in the league till they're 40 something. Whereas how many of these guys can play at a high level for a long time? And as we mentioned before, with all these moving pieces, you can't just win because you're amazing and you can get whoever you want. Like Trevor Lawrence has a great team around him. Like now you're going to have to deal with salary cap, and that's going to make you deal with a lot of changes. Like we saw Tom Brady win with so many different pieces. I don't know. I disagree.
What do you think, Jack?
If I could get in, I would say that I kind of think both you guys may be right here. And from the standpoint of, we're not talking about guys that can just run, and we're not talking about guys that can just pass. We're talking about guys that can do both. I mean, the guy you have on the screen right now, Kyler Murray, he does both. Lamar Jackson, you know what he's learning to do? Both. Patrick Mahomes, you know what he does best? Both. He kills you from the pocket. And just when you're thinking, oh boy, we got to drop 8 back in coverage here, he takes off and runs like he did in the Super Bowl, and you have no answer for it because he can take off and run like he's unbelievable when he takes off and run in terms of as an athlete. But I do want to go back to Corey's point a little bit about history repeating itself. Kyler Murray's a good player. Lamar Jackson's a great player. Are both of those guys, or either one of those guys, going to surpass Patrick Mahomes? I don't think so. I just don't think so. He's doing things that, I mean, he may. I mean, if Andy Reid stays around forever, which God, I hope he does. He's one of my favorite coaches of all time. I mean, who knows how many Super Bowl championships that arm, that brain, that ability, and Andy Reid as a combination can go win. And the only other guy that I'd throw into the top 5 here is Joe Burrow.
Yeah, Joe Burrow is he's a good dude.
He's 26. He's 26 on Sim's list, and I would have put him top 15 on Sim's list. And I'll tell you why is because you're not going to convince me that 15 teams in the NFL. I mean, he may even be higher than top 15. There's probably outside of the top 14, top 15. All of those teams would go, yeah, I'll trade my quarterback right now for Joe Burrow.
Wow, wait a second. Right out the gate, top 15. He hasn't even played a snap of NFL football. Jack.
I got you.
Jack.
Okay, Corey. So let me tell you. Let me say this to you right now. Let's just go this: Ryan Tannehill or Joe Burrow. Who do you want?
1 year? Or am I building a franchise?
1 year.
That's where it gets tough.
If it's 1 year, I'm taking Ryan Tannehill. I'm telling you because this is one thing super controversial. This is the exercise of the list is a 1 year thing. Joe Burrow right out the gate 1 year, you're not going to win. You're not going to win. I mean, that's impossible. Like not impossible.
I mean that tape though. I mean Chris looked at that tape and Jack, you as well. He said there wasn't a better college tape that he has seen.
But see, that's what I'm talking about. There's a different I'm Joe Burrow. I love Joe Burrow as well. I mean, what he did last year, my jaw was on the floor every Saturday. I'm a huge fan of his, but I will tell you right now, this is a different game. There's an adjustment period for everyone. And 1 year, if I'm building a franchise, Joe Burrow every day of the week, Yeah. But 1 year, I'm taking Ryan Tannehill. If it's 1 year.
Yeah. We had the waters meshed a little bit there because we kind of did like the who's going to be in the top 5 in 5 years. And now we also have this little 1 year thing going on.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I agree with you. If you're just doing truly the one, I mean, listen, he's going to start this year. He's probably going to start week 1. And now this offseason is probably going to screw with his success a little bit because he didn't have the time to go meet AJ Green, throw with him, I'm sure, to the level that he wanted and all those things. But I'd say he's probably, if you're doing just 1 year and the future doesn't matter, which of course it does, then you're probably going top 20.
But that's a phenomenal point, though, for all these guys coming out, though. This is a weird time to be a quarterback, right? Because you can't. Yeah, it's a COVID summer, right? So it's like, what in the world? You don't have the time to build chemistry and get in the locker room with all of your guys and show that you are the leader, you are the guy, and you can lead the team. So it is going to take a lot of time for them to develop that rapport. And even when you think about the hard part for me is there's so much hype now because we watch these guys from such a young age, We go all the way even to high school and we're talking them up for years. That when they get to the league, there's just monumental expectations. And they just can't help but fall short unless, like I said, they're Patrick Mahomes, but there's one Patrick Mahomes. And that's my problem. Is look at Sam Darnold, he was, and like Daniel Jones, there's all these guys I'm thinking they were really Baker Mayfield, Johnny Manziel. I've seen Deshaun Kaiser. I play with DK. Every time I see these guys come out, I'm like, oh, I can't wait to watch them play. But everyone's expecting them to turn around a franchise in their first year, and it takes time.
Yeah. And so,
what do you think made it tough for DK? What do you think made it so tough for DK?
See, this is exactly what I mean. Is that you look at a guy like DK. We were playing on a team that was. I mean, you had Jalen Smith, you had Will Fuller. Think about the guys on that team. They're all pros. Ronnie Stanley, Quinn Nelson. You know what I'm saying? It's just the guys that you had on that team are nuts. And the thing about college, like I said, everyone congregates. So everyone went to LSU. You're not going to have the receivers you had in the NFL, right? And when you get drafted to a team that's going to be a bad team, there's a reason why you get the number 1 or a first-round draft pick. You're bad. Then you have to go to a bad team, and you have to deal with all these different things as far as timelines. Because in college, everyone goes together, and you got 1 to 4 years. It's kind of it's almost like a set contract. In the pros, people are rolling in and out. They could be cut next week. There's no stability. And for a young guy to take hold of that, and when you're 21 years old and expect, get 25 million or whatever, great, all these expectations on you, that's really tough. That's really tough.
Let me throw this at you guys because I think there's been a narrative in the NFL over the past 5 years, and it seems like it's maybe been true, but I don't know if it is anymore. And let me see if you guys agree. Jack, what do you think? There's this idea that, man, there just are not that many good quarterbacks in the NFL. Certainly not enough good quarterbacks to fill out 32 teams, or if the starter goes down, to have a decent backup. You look at this list, and here's 40. And there are some names I think that were left off. You got, Jacoby Brissett that's not on there anymore. Some guys like Colt McCoy you've had injury issues too. But I don't know. I don't know if we see – maybe there's an influx the last couple of years of some really good quarterbacks. We're seeing Lamar Jackson be one of the top 5 quarterbacks now. I feel like overall quarterback talent in the NFL is better now than it has been over the past 5, maybe even 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you, but I think when you hear that argument, it's more about the economics of football, and we've extrapolated that out here. But the economics play a big part in terms of they really only want to pay the top 10 guys, and if you don't have one of the top 10 guys, you're better off just continuing to draft. I mean, you should be drafting a quarterback every single year because, as we've seen, if you get one of these dudes on a rookie contract, a Dak Prescott in the 4th round, you get one of these guys later. And all of a sudden you go, we can pay some people here. We can keep Byron Jones. We can keep Jalen Smith. We can keep Lawrence. We can maybe pay Van Der Esch. We can go get Amari Cooper. We can sign Ezekiel Elliott to a long-term contract and have him play next to him. But then you have an argument with Dak Prescott is, okay, so now we pay him $35 million and he absorbs $35 million here. And now we can't go pay these guys. Now Leighton Van Der Esch becomes a free agent. Now Byron Jones becomes a Miami Dolphin.
Yeah.
Now what does Dak Prescott do? So if you couldn't win a Super Bowl then, what makes you think he can do it now? And that's where economics becomes such a big factor in NFL football.
And I think that the coolest thing about the NFL, and this is what my list is like, that's why I love Patrick Mahomes and I think Lamar is on the rise, is that football is not an efficient market. Like people think about the stock market and they say, okay, I think that's the best parallel. If you think about the stock market, you think it's an efficient system, right? Because it's rational. You can predict and build models for it, but you're not, because the people who are investing are people, and they may buy or sell stocks because they're like, oh, my ex-girlfriend hated it, like she used an Apple, I now hate Apple, like something like stupid, and you sell stock because of that. Or Elon Musk tweets something, you're like, I'm gonna buy Tesla stock now.
Sometimes that's a good idea though, when Elon tweets something with Tesla.
I usually do buy. That's a good point.
But my point is that it's interesting because the stock market is not rational, it's irrational. It's very similar with football, where you think, you're like, look at the stats. Look at his passer rating. Look at his completion rating. Look how many missed tackles he's had. On paper, this guy is the best. Why isn't he winning? It's because a football team is made up of people who all have their own things going on, and they might get thrown off. They might play a bad game because their son was up all night and had nightmares and peed the bed, and now they have to be dad. They're not ready to go play the next day. Like, there are irrational things that come into play, even like favoritism with coaches. And they're like, hey, I like this guy better, and I'm going to give him a shot, even though you're better, because I recruited him. Like, these are all the politics, the salary cap. And that's why it makes it so hard to be a quarterback and lead a team, because it's a sociological and a psychology experiment, in psychology. You got to be able to inspire people and have a great group mentality. And not everyone can do that. That's why there's only few champions.
Correct.
And also the position in all sports.
That's why Drew Brees and Tom Brady are way too low on that list. I mean, exactly.
Okay, that's a great point.
Corey Robinson just described. It ain't all about arm time. It ain't all about who can that do this, and it's a lot about this. I'm just telling you.
We're gonna bring Chris in here to speak for himself. No, we can't. We're not doing that. He's doing other things too. But to defend himself against the slander of ranking Drew Brees and Tom Brady too low for the second year in a row. All right, maybe we can agree on this, guys. Before we go, I made another top 5 list, and so maybe this will bring us all together, and even Chris would agree on this. Top 5 wingmen at a bar. So if you're at a bar and you need a wingman, here's the top 5 quarterbacks who are wingman at a bar currently in the NFL for the 2020 seasons. This is not what they've. Oh no, I'm not. So number 5 is Drew Lock.
Okay.
Remember he did the thing where he was rapping on the sideline and having a good time.
I do.
So I think he would be a fun time, and he would be an asset to have next to you at a bar. Number 4 for me. Hold on. Number 4, Matt Ryan. I'm going with Matt Ryan, and that might be puzzling to you, but here's my thinking. Matt Ryan, great quarterback, maybe even in the Hall of Fame discussion. So he'll garner attention, but I don't feel like his personality will take away from your spotlight. And so you will be able to shine sitting next to Matt Ryan, because he won't be the dominant force, the dominant personality. So
you really thought about this. I like that research.
It was like 30. I thought more about this than I did about the previous 25 minutes we've been talking about here. Number 3, Patrick Mahomes, because if he brings the Super Bowl trophy and MVP trophy, that's a done deal. Number 2 is Jimmy Garoppolo, for reasons that I don't think I need to go into. And number 1 is
he's going to take all the girls from you? Is that the reason?
Well, no, he'll attract a lot of interest, and so I think you'll benefit from that. Even though he might outshine you, you'll still benefit overall by the interest that Jimmy Garoppolo garnered. And then Tom Brady is number 1, just because he's got all those traits with Jimmy Garoppolo, and he's the GOAT, and he's the all-time best. But I will argue, guys, and maybe you can disagree with this, that I would not have him in the top 5 if we're talking Brady with a long hair. Because I feel like that was a mistake. That maybe one of the most regrettable things he's done in his career, guys.
That's a Giselle move. That was Giselle, I think, not Tom.
She was like, let's see how it works. Did she like it? I wonder if she liked it, or if she regretted making him do that.
But I feel like with any wingman, right, you don't want guys who could steal a spotlight, right? So I feel like you want to go
not necessarily, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you go with, like, if all your wingmen are all married, then you're the only available option.
That's a good point. That's a good point. So Tom is married, and that's why he's number 1 on my list. All right. But also, Ahmed, I just want to say in general though, like Chris Sims, what
I love the effort that what he did, because think about this for a second. It's so difficult for all the reasons. We pulled out like 5 different ways that you could grade quarterbacks. So I love his idea. I love the list. And he's the only one that can speak on authority, at least in this group, because I didn't play quarterback in the NFL. But yeah, it's a really tough thing. It's a hard thing. So hats off to you for putting your list out there, Chris. Hats off.
I agree. And honestly, the more you disagree with anything that he said there, the more you have to go listen to his explanation. Because no matter which one it was where I was like, I'm just going to throw my pencil at the wall. This is so stupid. Okay, I'm going to go listen to Chris real quick. And his explanations were all pretty good. And for the most part, it had to do a lot with physical tools. That was my big takeaway. Almost every quarterback, he would circle back to physical tools and circle back to, can he make this throw, or can he put a lightning bolt on this throw, or can he do this, or can he do that, or can he run? There's a lot of physical stuff. And I think it was not enough mental stuff. That was my biggest walking away point from reading the list and listening to it.
And I think that's the great thing is, and he knows it too, is this sparks a lot of discussion. It makes you think. And Chris and Jack, you as well, not afraid to go out on a limb and make your opinions known. And if you feel differently than everyone else, then that's a good thing. And if you can back it up with some evidence and some proof, then try to do that. So we appreciate you. Thank you, Chris, for giving us the list so that we could throw it around and beat it up and beat you up in the process. The Chris Sims Top 40 Quarterback Countdown for 2020. Guys, we'll do this again in 2021. I feel like he'll do this for the rest of his life. Corey, Jack, well done. We'll do it again next week. How's that sound?
Cheers. I'm going to go put the cushions by the pool. Been sitting on them all day.
Yeah. There you guys.